But to get us started, I know that we're in the series called Go Far. And in this series, it's all based on the premise of this incredible old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go together, if you want to go far, you go together. And really the whole purpose of what we're doing here, guys, is we're building a business model. We're building a machine that if we work together could ultimately build incredible amounts of opportunity for everybody around us. It'll create stability, it'll create income streams, and it'll literally help us to be able to achieve our goals. And so later on, I'll talk more about some of the incentives that I want to give to those that are good stewards. But if you recall, for those that were in this training, we were talking about some of the keys to be able to go far. And part of that was being a team. And so if you remember last week, I'm just going to slide right into last week. Last week, specifically, we were talking about one of the key ingredients, which is one of the 3 out of the 5 of building team unity, because you cannot go far if you're not united with your team. If there's no unity, you really have nothing, is the reality. And so part of what we talked about was the different research that have been done, if you guys remember last week, of the differences between the teams that are highly productive and they have a level of trust, and the teams that are not very productive. And we saw the different benefits. I mean, over 74% less stress with a team that's united, that trust each other. And so as we broke down the established trust components, we also broke down that it all boils down to you are either building a trust relationship with your team or you're building distrust. There is no in between. And we talked about the way that you build trust is by your positive, consistent behavior over time. And that's the formula to be able to build trust. But also there's a formula. Negative, inconsistent behavior ultimately equates to distrust, which is one of the biggest things that breaks these team unity pieces that are together that ultimately build long-term success. So now, as we go into the next piece that I want to talk about, the next portion of this particular series is the next step, which is called diligence. And I want you guys to really, really pay a lot of attention to this today, because I have an awesome, incredible guest speaker that's going to really speak life into this. I want to start though with something really important here. I want to first define to you what diligence means. Now, instead of going on Google and looking at it, I actually went to one of my tools that I use to study the Bible that's in Hebrew. And I really want to break this down so everybody first gets this. So diligence is not about being busy. It is about being a good steward of your time and the resources and being productive. Guys, there is a massive difference between being completely flooded with tasks and being productive. And that is the biggest difference. And a lot of people fall into being completely busy but not being productive. And I'm the first one to admit that has happened to me, and it happens to me from time to time. And I have to be able to push back. But now let me read you the definition that is in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it basically, the word diligence means with diligence, which means with care, with speed or speedily, watchfulness with care, scrupulously, earnestly. Sometimes it even means early, with haste. It means industrious and exacting. And so I want us to get a picture of what the actual real meaning of diligence means. And the reason why is because if you don't have a proverb, this is one I want you to memorize. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. That's Proverbs 10:4. Now I want us to really put this word and take it in your mind, and I want you to let it drop to your heart. Because if you are struggling with any type of finance, if you are struggling with any long-term game plan, it is not about having millions of dollars to be successful. I've seen people that over the years, they were diligent and they were able to build up long-term wealth because of that diligence and the discipline they had. So why am I saying this? Because if you're struggling financially right now, my question is, do you have a slack hand or a disordered hand? Or are you being diligent? Because if you're diligent over time, you will develop the resources that you need to be successful. I can tell you of countless customers that work with us that are passive investors who don't make much. I mean, Steve's daughter is one of those examples. It's not like she makes $1 million a year, but she's now developing passive income because she's being diligent with what she does have. Everybody with me so far? Now, here's what's interesting. It is very tied to trust. How can you be diligent? Is the same format. Diligence is positive, consistent behavior over time equals diligence. So there's a correlation between being able to build trust and being a diligent person. So by contrast, if you're not diligent, guess what you're building? distrust. So now we're going back to last week's message. And this is the reason why I really believe that step 3 here really breaks it very clearly that being diligent is a key component of being able to be a good steward to develop additional resources and build success. So I want you to think about it this way before we move on. Results and value follow the diligent. What is following you? What is the trail? If I go back and look at the trail of what you leave behind, are we leaving results and value? Or is it chaos? Is it disorder? Is it confusion? Does that make sense? And so what I want to challenge us to do now is to really begin to think long-term and say, look, even if right now my trail is half and half, I got half results, half chaos, that's okay. As long as we become aware and we start driving towards being diligent and being a good steward. So now is where the question might begin, where you say, well, Rick, how do I demonstrate that I'm being diligent or trustworthy? How can I prove to everybody in my team that I can be diligent, that I can be productive, that I can be trustworthy?